The condition is really crazy condition.
I mean, that shouldn't give away the whole secret to professional windsurfing.
Maciek giving Antoine Albo a run for his body. Here we go. Woo! What a finish.
The guy is kind of talking bullshit.
The team's just got to work a little harder.
Welcome to the Windsurfing Podcast, episode 4, and you're in for a treat this week because you have got a 2-time world champion in 2 different disciplines. He's going to talk about his life on the road with no other than Kauli Seadi. Yes, he's going to talk about those world titles and how he got there. He's going to talk about the videos he's been a part of and lots more. It is, of course, the Brazilian hotshot that is Marcilio Browne.
So Marcilio, does anybody even call you that anymore? I don't record calling you that ever, actually.
No, my close friends always called by the nickname, but when I first meet somebody, I kind of say my real name, obviously, and then they call me that.
All right.
Most people actually call me that.
Okay. How's the Maui situation? How's the COVID thing going?
Maui feels, by looking at the news, that they got a hang of it a little bit early. I think from the past couple of days, there hasn't been any new cases, and I think the whole island we had maybe around 115 cases. So it's crazy. Everything is closed. You walk through Paia, which about a month ago it was just tourists everywhere, traffic jams. Now everything is closed. They have plywood on the walls, and the only things that are open is Mana Foods. I think Paia Fish Market is open for pickups, but that's pretty much it.
So it's pretty strict, pretty American style strict.
It's strict. Yeah, you can go to the beach. You can still go in the ocean to do what they call the essential activities, which you can sail, surf, but they have been kind of enforcing if there is people on the beach just sitting, you're not allowed to do that. A couple of days I was people surfing and there was maybe somebody taking pictures and the police went down and told them to leave and stuff.
So if you drop in on so if you drop in on someone and you don't keep your distance, it's not legal.
It's not legal. No. Yeah.
So obviously you're living in Maui, if anybody doesn't know that, if somebody doesn't know that by now or didn't figure it out, but you're originally from Brazil, born and raised in Fortaleza, north of Brazil, and your dad is a multiple Brazilian champion, right, in windsurfing. So I don't think that was ever a question if you and your brother are going to windsurf. But I did hear, because your dad is a racer, I did hear you were actually a slalom sailor. How did that happen, and how did you get into the waves and the freestyle, I guess, originally?
I started sailing. We were all in front of my grandmother's apartment in Fortaleza, in the main town. So it was inside the harbor. So obviously flat water, light gusty winds, and at the time, my dad and my uncle were slalom sailing most of the time, and then wave sailing when the conditions got really good. So the first thing I got through my parents was naturally slalom gear, because it was the same thing they did. And I really enjoyed slalom when I was really young, especially recently after getting that feeling of the harness and the foot strap. That's when I really liked slalom, just because mostly the sensation of planing and the jibes and things. And then we got into course racing soon after. But
yeah,
no, even when I was that young, I never had that competitiveness with slalom that I wanted to be faster than other people. For me, it was more I liked the sensation of slalom because you're going fast. But my dad's friends and people were kicking my ass, and that didn't really annoy me. So that's when I felt like, maybe, I don't know if this is for me or not. And that's when freestyle came along. And then it wasn't something that I had to be competitive directly against anybody. It was more there was new tricks every week, and I liked looking at the tricks and watching them. And for me, visually, they were really attractive and something that I wanted to do. And not only something I wanted to do, but it was very accessible to me because I could go straight from my grandmother's. Wave sailing was harder because we needed to drive, needed more conditions. But where I grew up, freestyle was there every day. So for me, that's when that became available, that's all I wanted to do at the time.
That was my next question. Like, you're not exactly, you don't strike from the outside, at least, as a super competitive person. I know you are, but it's not like you go out to show off or to kind of kick everybody's ass to be the best guy out there or whatever. So you obviously must have realized that being a professional windsurfer, if you want to follow this path, it's going to require sort of being competitive. How did that come along? Because some people, they just don't have it in them to compete, you know?
Yeah. I think I became more competitive as I got older, probably. When I was really young and I really got hooked into windsurfing, I don't think I ever knew what the ranking was. When I was wave sailing, I knew who the top guys were because I watched a lot of videos, but I never knew who was first, second, third. My favorite sailors were before Kauli, and those guys were Polakau and Cisco and Levi. And I came to find out that Polakau was a world champion years after in Francisco because at that time I didn't even know. I just really enjoyed watching them sail, and for me they were the best because of how they sailed. And then once I joined the PWA, that's where I realized, Francisco was world champion that year, Jason was a world champion those years. But for me, it was all about the visual, like how the tricks looked and the style and how they did what they did. That was more important. And then as I did the freestyle, naturally, the way to become a professional sailor, you had to compete. At that time, you couldn't be a sole freestyle person that goes doing freestyle videos and make a living out of it. That, at least as far as I know, it didn't exist. So it's like, okay, you're going to do this. This is your plan. You have to compete. So let's focus on competing. And it was just kind of automatic, but it was never a dream like, let's compete. It was never my...
Yeah. So I guess all you Brazilians, you kind of have this contingent going to Maui every year. And I guess that was kind of a natural step for you, right? When was the first time that you went to Maui?
The first time I came to Maui was 2002. And I came with my uncle and maybe 3 more friends from Brazil.
So you were like 13, is that right?
No, I was 12 or 13, something like that. Yeah, because I think it was right before my birthday. It was in April. That trip, everybody was nice to me. Like, I remember being introduced to people and I felt like everybody was friendly. And it was a nice trip to finally meet them all.
For sure. I mean, you're a 13-year-old kid, probably ripping already at the time, everybody's like, if a 13-year-old kid comes up to you now, you're going to be stoked, genuinely. It's not like you're going to pretend or whatever. It's genuinely good to see. So for sure. But
it's nice to see so many kids now, especially in Pozo, where you see a lot of young kids and they are there, but they are not just hooking in and putting the harness and playing. They're actually going for really big moves. It's nice. Really nice to see that.
Sending it, yeah. But and then fast forward a little bit, and as a kid, a 14-year-old kid, I guess, or 13, you do your first contest in Fuerte. Yeah, how was it? How was it for a kid, 13 years old, probably not necessarily knowing what to expect, or did Kauli really prepare you well for what was going on,
That trip came together by full support of my parents. I was fortunate that they were able to pay for everything. They paid for my ticket, and then I spoke to Kauli before, and we lined up that we stayed together. So obviously my parents helped me out. But then once we got there, I think I arrived in Gran Canaria the day that they were doing the finals of the wave event. and I watched the finals of, I think it was Jonas Ceballos against Vidar, and I think Vidar won, or maybe Bjorn won or something, but it was a year that
Seat harness
Jonas was
Vidar.
sailing really good. Huh?
Vidar in a seat harness, throwing doubles.
Doing one-hand doubles.
Doubles, yeah.
Yeah,
Very
so that was my first view of the Canaries. I came, Kauli and Conan picked me up from the airport, and then it was obviously that traditional Pozo 50 knots or whatever, and I remember being so scared, man. I remember like sitting there and looking at the jumps and just thinking to myself, like, what am I even doing here? Like, I'm not even gonna be able to rig here. What a mistake. Like, I shouldn't even be here. But then I was looking and then didn't rig my sail for a couple of days, I think, because it was too windy. I saw the final. I was like, whoa, I never seen jumps anywhere near that height and never seen a wind like that. And then a couple of days later, when the wind finally dropped and the waves got smaller and the guys were actually freestyling, I rigged my 3.0 and I went for a couple of runs and came back in, and then said, okay, I did Pozo. Okay, good. Perfect.
Those jumps were big, though. I think even now, maybe except for the landings or the style or whatever, but you know, the stalled doubles Vidar was doing, or the back loops Jonas was doing at the time. I think even now,
Jonas was sailing. Jonas looked unbeatable. I thought that for sure he was going to win the event. Watching his heats, I remember big back loops, but one thing that I remember the most was the tabletops that he was doing. He was doing some tabletops that were crazy. They were not super high, but I think they were the most tweaked I've seen up until this day. Him and Dario. Dario was doing them.
I think he even went with one hand to the other side of the boom sometimes, right? He went so tweaked.
I don't remember, but it looked like he was almost had his back on the other side of the sail. It was so tweaked.
Insane.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Yeah, wish we had more footage and more live stream and stuff from back then. But anyway, me as a kid, I was watching that and it was insane. But let's talk a little bit about Kauli. Obviously, he kind of dragged you into that, and how you said he fully supported you. He kind of dragged you into that, but he wasn't. What was he like at the time? Like 20, 21 or something? It's not like
he was. Yeah, he was maybe like that, maybe that age. But Kauli was always so focused, you know. Kauli was one of the guys that I met that spent the most amount of time in the water. And he was sailing so much, man. Like, he was sailing a ridiculous amount of time. Like, here in Maui, looked like he was plugged into a battery, like, had so much energy. And because he was the only person that I was around, that's what I thought everybody did. And later on, I came to find out that people didn't train that much, you know, and that was, now I see how fortunate I was to be around that, to be watching him training at the time. I remember in Maui, like, he would just sail the whole day, pretty much every day. Got to keep 11 in the morning with food. We had food in the car. I couldn't sail as much as he did at the time. He sailed all day long. And then he also did not have that condition thing. A lot of the time I hear a lot of guys going, oh, the conditions are this, the conditions are that, let's wait for the conditions. Kauli was like, man, we're here at the beach, we're going to rig, we're going to sail. Doesn't matter what it is. At his home in Biraquera, like, he would be sailing a lot of the times with current, with no wind at all. So it was really crazy to be around Kauli at that time, because he was the front runner, I think, pushing wave sailing in those years.
It definitely rubbed off on you, though, because I remember coming to Maui last year, and there would be many days where, like you say, people were sitting on the rail and I don't know, this and that, and I was there rigged, kind of not wanting to go alone. But then you would just come, rig, and go, you know, and I would be like stoked, like you just, I guess 20 or almost 20 years later, it's still there, that same.
You know what it is for me? I hate the feeling of loading my truck, going to the beach, and coming back home without getting in the water, you know?
Once you're there, you want to stay there.
Like, once I'm there, I want to at least get tired, you know? At least get in the water, whatever, get a few waves, get pounded, but at least come home with that feeling of being tired, like you can relax and you can move on to something else, because otherwise you have all that energy, you go there and what do you do?
More like get pounded, more like throw a couple air takas and a couple of 360s and like
Sometimes
side onshore.
you throw a really long swim to cool out too.
Yeah, like side onshore, 10 knots, mast high. I remember one day, I think, like, yeah, you almost landed.
That's how they always run the Aloha. That's how the conditions we always get. So
yeah,
it's good to train for that, right?
Yeah, but anyway, so Kauli definitely rubbed off on you. But how did your parents feel about sending like a 13-year-old kid, 14-year-old kid with a 20-year-old into basically the other side of the world, right?
Yes, I still have to talk with them about that. I don't know, but now that I have a kid, I find myself thinking about that a lot. Like, wow, like how did they allow all of that to happen so early? But my dad is a really open-minded guy, and he windsurfs his whole life, like you said, and he knew that if he stopped those years from happening, those trips, you know, it might have a negative effect on. He saw that Kauli was on the right track, and he knew that I would progress the most if I was around that energy. So I think he just made the decision to. And Kauli was somebody he really trusted, you know. Kauli wasn't the kind of guy that was out partying. Kauli was all about sleeping early, training, sailing a lot. It was fun. He wasn't super serious, like military or anything like that. He was a super fun, making jokes all the time, but he was not crazy. He was irresponsible, you know.
I guess that's what I was about to ask you. Like, if somebody comes, like a 19 or 20-year-old comes, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna take Kyle on tour, you know. I'm just gonna take him around the world. No worries, no biggie, you know. We're gonna go to Fuerte. There's a tent with 2,000 people partying. You know, like horny girls from all over the world, you know, and yeah, no biggie, right?
Yeah,
what would you say? Kauli comes.
I think you really have to know the person who is taking him. And my dad knew Kauli from when Kauli was a kid, you know, and he knew that Kauli would go to a party to celebrate a good result, but he wouldn't go anywhere with the purpose of partying. You know, he would go there to sail as much as he could, and if he got a good result by the end of the event, or one of his friends got a good result, then maybe celebrate. But Kauli was not the kind of person that was about partying. He wanted to get his world titles, and I think my dad knew that, you know, but still, man, it's a hard decision, because not even anything to do with that, but just sailing alone in those conditions, accidents, you know, in airports, all that kind of stuff. But I think you can't control everything, right? You gotta let your kids do what they do, and I think.
But I think that's great. I think that's one of the reasons why you are where you are, right? Because your parents allowed you to even make your mistakes, you know, and you mature so much faster that way, right? When you're out there, you need to even stuff that seems simple, check in, load your gear, you know, be on time, all these kind of things, you know, check into the hotel, all these things that seem small, but you know, at first it's scary
when you are 14, 15, all of those things. Well, different languages, you know, but it's nice that you learn how to do it alone from an early age. It gives you independence, you know, like you can go wherever you want when you want it, and it's a nice feeling when you're young, I think.
Yeah. How was the tour back then? What do you remember from that event? Because I think it's a very different. Well, it was 17 years ago, so a lot of stuff changed.
Yeah. My first memories from the tour was before I even joined, was in 98, 99, when they had the events in Beach Park in Fortaleza. And I remember, I don't know if it's because I was too young, but I remember it being really intense. I remember just the Brazilian national events were intense. There was a lot of people. There were guys who made a living just from competing on the Brazilian nationals. So when there is maybe more money like that and more attention, there was also crazy amount of testing, guys getting there with so many boards and a lot of heated moments, you know, on start lines. I remember some discussions on the beach and maybe more tense, more stress because maybe there was more pressure. I don't know. But I remember more of that, you know, more just people taking it really, and people still take it super serious now, but back then it just felt more intense to me.
I
Maybe
think there's
because I was too
less,
young.
right now there's less discussing, less FU or less whatever, you know, getting into somebody's face or
Yeah.
whatever. That's what I feel because that's what I grew up watching. And then I got on tour and I was like this and everybody thought I was a total dick, you know? So I thought, you know, you watch these other sports as well, you know, whatever, basketball. I know you're not a big sports guy or whatever, but
And maybe before this slalom didn't have as many rules, right, as they have now. I don't know if they did.
no, it's the opposite, actually. They used to have racing rules.
They had more rules.
They had more rules, but because of that, you would get into the protest room, and that's where all the discussion started, you know. Now,
Yeah.
you kind of cross the finish line, somebody took you out, and you're like, okay, I can either totally go off on this guy and punch him or whatever and get fined, and actually have my whole day being super emotional because, as you know, it doesn't go away super fast, you know. You need time for the emotion to disappear, or you can take a few deep breaths and just focus on the next one, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so Fuerte is one thing, but then you get to places like Austria, Silt. How was that for a guy that lived in Brazil, traveled to Maui? I guess that was your only destination, right? As a kid, like going to Maui.
It was, man, that for me was one of the biggest challenges I had. I think my first contest in cold water was in Guincho in Portugal, and in June, and
like 25 degrees air and maybe 80-degree
just
water.
a little bit cold water, yeah, and maybe guys wearing 3 shoes and wetsuits like that. And I remember being so, man, like jumping in the water, being like, my God, this is so cold. And then I remember I used to talk about that to everybody. I go in the beach to all the sailors, guys from England or for Ireland or whatever. I'm like, man, cold water here. How do you guys deal with this? And everybody's looking at me like they didn't even understand what I was saying. But it was cold to me. And then the next one was Austria. And I remember being more nervous about getting in the water because of the cold. And that was a cold year too. I think it was 2006 maybe. It was cold. It was even people there was saying it was cold. But I think my hands and feet froze and I got the numbness. But I think the adrenaline of the event helped it. But that for me for years was a challenge, you know, to face that.
I have to say, I think anybody that free sails in cold thinks that it's maybe not so bad, but competing is just so different, isn't it? I still struggle to this day to really, you know, get to the level that you really want for competition, you know, in the cold. I can free sail for hours in 5 mil boots and gloves and whatever, but competing is a whole different story. Do you still have that, or?
I have more of, it depends. If it's gonna be a day that it's the end of the day and it's the first round, so maybe you know you're only gonna do 1 round that day, then it's not so bad. I feel like you gotta warm up and then you can feel good to do 1 heat or 2 heats. But the hard thing for me is where you are maybe in a double elimination and you're gonna have to do a lot of heats, hopefully, if you keep making them. But when you start making the heats, usually those cold places are places that there are short breaks, like say Zilt, for example. And as much energy as you spend on your heats, you spend to get your gear in a beach, to get your gear out of the short break and back on the launch place out of the current. So it becomes a marathon on the sense that you own the wetsuit the whole day. After the first or second round, there's not really time to change. So that's where it gets exhausting. It's managing that energy spent of running around after your gear, bringing gear up, having energy for the heats, having the right amount of food. Too much food, you don't feel good. Too little food, then you get cold and weak. So I think that's where it gets hard.
Yeah, definitely. So, but then talking about Sylt and Austria, anybody that's been there know that it's as much of an event as much as it is what's around the event, right? All the side events, all the parties, all that stuff. What was your first kind of experience with that? Because I don't believe that the guys just left the kid in the house, because that's not how it works usually. It's more like,
oh yeah, I mean, for sure, when you're 18, we all went to the American bar and partied and had beers, but for me, it was never before. It was always one time after the event, or maybe like there was years that I maybe went a bit more when there was knowing that all in the forecast, but I don't think it was never about that for us.
For sure. No, I wanted to see like how for a kid from Brazil, you know, kind of living in...
Man, people party a lot in Brazil too.
No, I know, but it's different, isn't it? It's all kind of on the beach, you know, salsa, you know, kind of South American music. And here you get to the American bar, there's sweat dripping off the ceiling. There's guys with no shirt diving from the bar into the crowd and all this kind of wild stuff, you know. There's these Germans, 40 plus year old, that they're going as wild as anybody, you know. And that, I don't know, for me, if I wasn't from Poland, it would be a total shock. And I seen guys that come to Poland when we had the big Formula events, and they couldn't believe, you know, and I guess Germany was the same. So that was more my question. But it's crazy to have an event in a destination like Sylt, that it's like a more city, you know, like it's a tourist place for all the German people. They go there on vacation, and then you have a windsurfing event in the middle of it. And there's so many people there that sometimes you're walking down the beach and you're a couple minutes away from your heat, and you like, man, how am I gonna get my rig through all these people? And you like try not to hit people's heads, and it's crazy over there. Yeah. So I guess your first full year on tour in both disciplines was 06, right? 2006. And then on the results, I was shocked when I did that research. You finished 10th in waves and 7th in freestyle in kind of your first full year on tour. And you won the Belgium jump indoor, the jumping in the Belgium indoor. How was that? Was it like kind of the analytical Brawzinho that we just saw explaining all these things, these little details, or you were just still like happy-go-lucky, fully?
Didn't even know. No, it's so different. I didn't know what my stance was on my boards. I just kind of rigged things as they went, and it was completely different. Just that Belgium one was a big shock for me. Didn't expect it at all. And on waves, I think I went to the events with one, maybe two boards. It was very, very different for me at the time.
How many guys do you think know their stance in exact numbers right now on tour? Because for you, it's like, I didn't even know my stance. I mean,
on tour, I think most guys will know for sure. But I think most freestylers probably just kind of feel it out as they get aboard, and slowly they adjust it. But I don't think everybody knows the actual number.
Yeah, because you said it like it was the most basic. Like it was
if you're a professional windsurfer, that's something you should know probably, right?
Yeah. So from there, from 7th in freestyle and 10 in waves, it took you only a year to win a world title in freestyle, and then it took you another 7 to win in waves. Why do you think freestyle is always this kind of, younger discipline where all the kids come and they can do good straight away, whereas the waves, it takes a lot more time?
I think freestyle, maybe there is less variables when you are competing. When you're doing a run, it's always kind of choppy, but then you can train on choppy places, and then its wind is strong or it's light. But the wind being port tech or starboard tech is not going to ruin your life. You can adjust yourself. You can still do the moves on both techs. In waves, I think there is a lot more variables. First of all, starboard and port. That's the biggest one. For me, it took a really long time, I think, because I didn't really start training on port tech until my 20s. I had sessions before, but I was too busy with training freestyle that I would never go on a trip or put time apart to train on port tech. And it was only in 2010 when I stopped competing freestyle that I said, okay, I'm going to start doing port tech now. And then that year I went to Cape Town. I went to Chile. I went to Pozo a month and a half earlier, and I stayed a month after the event. And I did that for 3 or 4 years or 5 years. And then I think only in 2012, and then you learn about your gear, and then not only port tech, but then all this current that you face in Zilt and all this. I think there is more variables. Like in freestyle, you have the current in Zilt too, but usually when you're freestyling, the waves are smaller and you're sailing out the back where there is not that much current. So, there is all this experience that it was hard for me because I didn't grow up sailing in Europe. I was sailing mostly in Brazil, where the conditions are pretty much the same every day, and in Maui, which they are not the same. They are big waves, but it doesn't have that aspect of places where it's really hard to get plenty in those things. So I think in waves, it takes longer because of that.
Yeah. So you're world champion year in freestyle. You start with a decent event in Lanzarote, and then you win Fuerte. And once you won in Fuerte, did you know straight away, like, okay, this is the year, now I just put all my energy into trying to win that? Or did you just...
Not at all. Not at all. I remember after that event, I was so just happy that I won, but I wasn't thinking about a world title. I didn't even know. I knew I was on the top somewhere, but I didn't even believe it so much. And I remember being in Brazil for the Ibiraquera event, and I remember staying there extra after the event to sail because it was good. And I remember Paskowski telling me at the time, like, man, if I was in your position, I would have not even gone to that event.
And just train
I would have
freestyle.
stayed in Fortaleza training freestyle the whole time. And at the time I looked at him and I didn't even process. I didn't even think of it that way until years later. I remember that. I thought, yeah, maybe he was right. Maybe that's what I should have done. But at the same time, the fact that I didn't do that and didn't put that pressure on myself and didn't even think about the world title, maybe that made it happen at the time, I was just feeling really relaxed with the whole thing. It wasn't a weight, or even in Zilt during the single elimination, I think we finished the single, and after the single, maybe I was second or third. And then I remember Kauli, man, you must be pissed. Maybe one more heat and you'd have been first or something like that. And I was like, but man, I'm second or third. Last year I was seventh. I'm happy. Yeah. And then the double came, and then Nick Baker was there helping me, and he got me on a good mindset, and then it happened. But I think it's the two things. It's good to train hard, but it's also good to be relaxed and enjoying it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more even than two things, but yeah. So take us through that heat, because I just saw the El Yaque movie where it's shown really well how you and Ricardo, you had this heat that if you won, you would become world champion. And that heat was on hold for, I don't know, forever, like through...
In Zil against
Yeah.
Ricardo?
Yeah.
Was it against him?
Yeah, it was. That's what it says in the movie, at least.
I don't think, maybe it was. It was the starboard tack day, right?
Yeah, starboard tack, side offshore, light, and they would run the heat, cancel it. You guys would go in the water for 30 seconds. They would cancel, rain squall, whatever.
Oh yeah, so then and then it ended up in the late the day. I remember we were both kind of cramping and I didn't remember that was against Ricardo. I thought it was with Paskowski for some, but maybe Paskowski was the round before. Yeah, I just remember being super tired, but I remember Nick Baker was at the beach and he was helping me out a lot. He was bringing me water and keeping my gear on the right place and making sure I had a jacket on, you know. So he gave me a lot of instructions that day for the code. And I had a couple good heats that event, and it was good because it was starboard tack, so it kind of helped me a little bit. I think because of the air chachus and a couple jumps that I did better on that tack. But yeah, I don't remember that much. It was so long ago.
I think there's a classic photo where they chair you up the beach and it's just fully dark. It's like pitch black.
Yeah, I think when I won that heat, I didn't know that I was first, but then JC told me. JC came to take the picture, and then he said, "Oh, you're first," and then it was really small chance that we would do the double, another, because you could do many singles or doubles. And then I remember I was celebrating because I thought I won because JC was saying that, or maybe someone else. And then I remember Nick Baker saying, "Man, it's not over yet. Stop celebrating. No, it's not finished. It's not finished." And then I kind of calmed down, but I was still really happy. And then we had to finish the double the next day. And I think there was Kiri and Goito ahead. And then when that double finished, maybe the wind died or something, and there wasn't enough time to do another one.
So JC sending a big spoiler. JC is obviously John Carter, the official photographer of PW for many, many years now. So I jumped the timeline a little bit because actually before you won your title, you had a feature movie come out, Committed, which I think for many people, it was kind of your kind of arrival, because back then it was not what it is now with following the contests and live streams and social media. Of course, all of that was around a little bit, but not to the point where it's today. I even tried to find some pictures from that Belgium indoor, and there's like maybe 20 pictures online, you know, it's not the same. So putting out a full length movie was, well, first of all, an arrival on the scene, but second of all, it must have been a dream for a guy that watched at that time basically all the movies on repeat. How did that came about?
Yeah, it was strange. It was so different because now we film and we see the footage each day. Like those days, we were lucky if we saw the footage before the movie, because I remember Peter Svensson was doing it, and I don't think we had a plan to do that movie, but then I was in Jeri sailing, because I was always at sailing at that time, and Peter was there on vacation, and we started filming it. And I think along the way we kind of decided to do the movie, but they were filming every day, but I don't think I got to see many of the shots until the movie was done. So that's how you see how different it was at the time.
Yeah.
And then I didn't think much of that movie. I mean, before I didn't think, and then it went well, that had good exposure. And then we did another one of Peter, the Committed Reloaded one. And that one we put a lot more energy and planning and trips. And I was more involved with the selection of the shots and all of that. But the second one was the one that I felt like I worked more. the first one I was just going sailing there, like I
Yeah.
did, and then he was filming. But the second one we playing more everything.
Yeah, sailing. I kind of rewatched that actually, and sailing. Well, you were what, like 16 or something at that time, 17 maybe, and I mean it's insane how like you're jumping at that time already, like doubles, clean. Okay, obviously that's on starboard tack, which is by far your favorite, was your favorite tack at that time, right? But what age did you land your first double?
I think I spun a couple when I was early 14. I think I spun a couple, and I probably landed some late that year. So 14, 15.
Yeah.
14, 15, something like that.
You obviously later on kind of focused on the waves, but why do you think it is that so many of world champions or top guys were doing freestyle either simultaneously with the waves or even exclusively like Ricardo? Kauli was doing freestyle, was on the podium. Even Thomas Traversa, that year that you won, he was in a shot of a world title. I don't think many people know that. Even Victor, Victor was doing freestyle.
I think it's a combination of things. I think the main thing is where you live. Ricardo lived in El Yaque, so it doesn't get better for freestyle than that place.
Yeah.
I lived in Brazil, like flat water. So for kids, it's really accessible. You don't need anybody. I mean, some places you do, but for me, I didn't need anybody to drive me to the beach. I could do it at my own time. And every day there was something new. You go online and you see, somebody did this, somebody did that. And it was so exciting to every month have a new trick, and I think for kids, that excitement of having something new to work on, it's the best thing. And it was also a easier way for the younger generation to get exposure at the time for sponsors and things like that. And it would be hard to, at that time, beat the top guys on waves because they were so much more experienced. But on freestyle, the young guys had so much more energy to stay repeating that same trick 1,000 times.
Get pounded, eat shit, yeah.
Maybe you don't have that patience when you're a bit older. So I think for that reason, maybe the freestyle guys got good when they were so young. And I think that was the first discipline where they really took over.
Yeah, but do you think it helped like these guys tremendously, or is more like they did freestyle, they came onto the scene, and then they had the possibility to do waves, or you, not they, because you're part of it?
I think it helps. I think it helps because when you're learning so many tricks, you I don't know, twist your ankle, and then you come back a month later and you're like, oh, there's 3 tricks I gotta learn, or 4 tricks I gotta learn. And when you're doing freestyle, that doesn't seem like a crazy thing, because you learn so many tricks, so you're gonna go and learn them. But when you stop and you only wave sailing and there's a new trick and you're like, whoa, there's a new trick. How are we gonna do to learn that? It seems like a lot more to learn a new trick when you stop freestyling, because mostly what you do is repeat and perfect what you already know. So I think in that sense, freestylers, when they came to wave sailing, they had to learn new things. It wasn't that mental, block, like, oh, you learn it, you learn it, it's easy, you know how to learn,
Yeah.
I think.
Then you touched already on Committed Reloaded, which at that time was, I think, one of the best movies out there. I mean, still, I couldn't actually find it preparing for this, but I remember watching it. I watched it so many times. I have screenshot. I know which music there was and everything. And this was kind of the first movie that really talked about and showed bringing that freestyle into the waves, and you doing air taka after air taka after air taka, and all these kind of, like you say, before maybe it was some sort of a gimmick, but now all of a sudden it was a move that you could incorporate into proper wave riding, and it would look cool. And you know, the older guys that maybe wouldn't want to learn it, you know, you had an advantage straight away. So how did the movie came about, and how, like, was it natural for you to just try these kind of more freestyle orientated moves in the waves, or I don't know?
It was natural because at that time I was still doing a lot of freestyle. I was still competing, and a lot of the tricks were Goya on flat water. And then we were doing so many of those Goyas on freestyle because you were doing Goya into flaca, Goya into this, Goya into that. So it was so easy for us at the time to do it on flat water. Then for the Goyas and the air tackle, because all you gotta do is kind of change the angle of which the sail spins. So for me, it was the most natural thing to kind of go eyeing the wave and trying to put that, but trying to put that on the most critical part of the wave I could find. And that was natural, I think, coming from freestyle because we were doing a lot of that movement. Oh, look who it is here. Come to say hi.
That would be Caio, I guess. Oi! Bom dia!
The slalom body.
He's huge, isn't he? Jesus, look at him.
Oh, sorry, I'll be back.
That's amazing. We'll get to that, being a new daddy.
Yeah.
So cool. But also I remember, and this, my friends and we laughed about this a lot. I remember this quote. First of all, you say, like, I love freestyle and I want to keep doing for many more years. And then you, I don't know, after a year or something, you quit. Obviously, that wasn't entirely up to you, I guess, with the injuries and stuff. But how did that process of, you know, just focusing on the waves come about?
It happened when I broke my foot, because I was before just sailing every day, and I was not really thinking much far ahead of what I wanted to do. And then in the beginning of the year, when I was in Cape Town in 2010, I broke my foot. And then that, 2-3 months, it gives you a lot of time to think. And then I realized that I really wanted to spend more and more time wave sailing, because that's what I thought about the most, and where I think I wanted it more to be around waves. And I had been on that year having more fun doing wave events, even when I had bad results. So it's not that I didn't like freestyle, but I was so much more interested in waves and watching footage of wave sailors that I thought, I want to do that. And there is no point on trying to do two things, because then I'm always going to be on disadvantage of one thing. If I'm freestyling and wave sailing, I'm never going to have the time to learn Portec, which is something I really wanted to do. And I was really paying the price on that, because in Pozo, I could never have that break and time to focus on training, because we had Lanzarote, we had this, we had that, I had to prepare. And I just started feeling a little bit overwhelmed with doing two disciplines. I felt like it would be really hard to get a wave title if I was still focusing on freestyle. And I didn't want to do freestyle without putting the energy and just going to the events without practice. That's not something that was in my interest to do.
Have you not won a world title in freestyle? You think you'd keep doing it, trying to win one, or would you switch to the waves as well anyway?
I don't know, man. That's so hard to say. I think I would have switched to waves also, because it's what I like the most. And in the end of the day, you do what you like.
And the second quote from that movie is, like, moving to Mistral was such a big step for me. It's amazing working with Nick Baker, Mark Nelson. I want to stay here forever. And that movie dropped in like September, October, whatever. And then in January, you announced you're going with North Fanatic. So what was that all about?
But that wasn't my decision at the time. At that time, Mistral closed.
Yeah.
They had financial problems, and they had financial things going on. and they couldn't keep that team anymore. So I was kind of, Fanatic was on board and more at the time, and it was what made sense for me at the time. But it wasn't like a decision, you know. It was just how things evolved. It wasn't me. It was, you know, it was the brand at the time.
I guess you're still the last world champion on Mistral, huh? Pretty.
Yeah, am I?
I guess, yeah. Must be. Yeah. So then you guys did 4 Dimensions and Minds Wide Open. And I think these were pretty big projects for the financial situation of the industry, and sort of also with moving away from you know, filming for big projects, but going to social media. That was happening already in YouTube and all that. First of all, it must have felt good, and second of all, do you still watch them, and were you happy how they came out? Because I remember some discussions, overhearing some stuff like, you didn't put this, yeah, but the light was bad, and you know, like the filming guys versus the windsurfers. You know, I don't know if it was you or Ricardo, or, you know, like pulling a sick move, but I don't know, the lighting or the colors or whatever wasn't right, and they wouldn't put it in.
The movies, those movies for me, they were a really big priority on my year. They were as important as getting good results, because I always had a passion for movies. As a kid, I knew every single movie, every single trick. So I took the time, and I really put a lot of energy into trying to get good sections. And there's always comes that stress, because for me, I couldn't care less about the light, about that stuff. I wanted good music, and I wanted the best tricks to be in there. And the guys, the producers, obviously with much more knowledge and experience than me, wanted the shots that looked better overall. So then we would sometimes have little heated arguments. And
little or heated?
But not, huh?
Little or heated?
Heated. I mean, we were all working really hard on it, and we all wanted our vision to go forward, and everybody was a lot younger, so you didn't calculate your words as much. But, yeah.
So growing up, watching all these things, what were your favorite, or what are your favorite until today, favorite windsurfing movies?
Favorite of all time, I have to say About Time from Portugal.
Same.
Yeah, that's my favorite movie. And then I like a lot the windsurf movies 1 and 2. I think they're really good. Obviously, I like Minds Wide Open, but I didn't watch as many times the movies that I was on as I watched the other movies. But Rip, Robbie Nash is one. And the first Portugal movie, the one before About Time. Unleashed was good. The Force was good. Plug and Play was good. But those were the other ones, like the primary ones were the ones that first.
And if you have to pick one that you're in?
Minds Wide Open, I think, was the best one.
So do you think in this era of, you know, YouTube, Instagram edits, you're basically posting probably one sailing edit every week or something, do you think it's still possible to make a film, to make a proper windsurfing movie that we kind of grew up on?
I really like movies. I like those long night movies where you watch it on a big screen and you can see all the work and all the quality and the angles and all of that. As now I appreciate that a lot more than I did when I was doing Minds Wide Open and those. It's kind of strange now. I know a lot of people already said that, but all these video producers and people have really expensive camera gear and everything, and in the end people are watching the stuff on their phones on a screen that big, and it really changed. You know, I think it became much more about the vlogs and what people are doing every day and session here and there than a really well-produced thing. So I like both, but I think it's really nice when you look forward a really long time to see a project that someone has been doing, that you heard that they scored a really good trip here, they scored a really good trip there, and then you don't know what you're gonna get, and you're really excited to see that movie. And when it comes to your hands, finally you can watch it. I really like that feeling. And that's
you go to the cinema, you go to the cinema, you sit down, guys are there.
You take the time to watch.
Yeah.
You're not watching the line of somewhere on your phone, and then you kind of half saw it, but then, it kind of takes it away from it a little bit.
And you can't go frame by frame on Instagram. You can't stop it. It's like,
I know frame by frame was good, huh? Like, I love doing the frame by frame thing.
We'll get to that.
My brother got really pissed off because we used to watch the movies with the remote, going frame by frame, and he's like, "Man, just let the thing play." And I'm like, "No, wait."
You film pretty much every day. Do you ever go sailing without a camera anymore?
Yeah, for sure. I go sailing a lot without a camera. When I'm sailing down the coast, jumping, a lot of the times I just go sailing, and then when the conditions are good and it's sunny and it's nice, we film. And that happens a lot in Maui, so you happen to film a lot, but there's also a lot of sections that are not filmed.
I guess that's where we could say you are competitive, right? In that kind of against yourself.
No, I am definitely competitive. I like to learn tricks. I like to improve my sailing. I'm just not so much. If I'm freestyling, I'm not thinking, I want to sail better than that person. That's, for me, it's like, I want to do this trick. I want to do a turn like this. I want to do this like that. I'm more competitive on that way than they'll do. Obviously, if somebody's smoking you on the water, you get a little bit, I want to sail better, but not just about that.
Yeah, that doesn't happen very much in Hokipa, I think.
Yeah, it does.
Robbie Swift gave a certain activity you do pretty much every night a name. And
Tipping?
Yeah. What is...
It's funny that he says that. Because he does just as much, if not more.
Do you watch, because the story has it, the first thing I saw was Swift showing me his phone, and you could see you, just your face lit with the laptop screen, going like this, frame by frame, then going back, then watching like kind of on a different angle, then going again. How often
Can't
do you do
deny
that?
that one.
Huh?
That's how I try to learn stuff. I do that. It depends. When I'm in Pozo the month before the event, I do that a lot. Now, not doing it as much because I haven't been filming much. But it's more like when you want to learn a new trick, you want to make sure that you see everything. You want to see your hands on the boom. You want to see your stance, your legs, everything. So I think for me that's training in a way, and I do a lot of that, especially when I'm before an event. Like trying to learn stuff. Thank you.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So anyway, so you do those two movies with North Fanatic, and it seems like from the outside, it seems like, you're at home and you've been with Boards and More for that Mistral time as well and whatever. And then you move on to Goya, which I think for many people from the outside wasn't like super obvious. And I want to ask you, because it seems like, there was a time where you would change sponsors quite frequently, but since you went to Goya, you've been there for 9 years now or something, 8 years.
Yeah, nearly.
What do you think makes a good sponsor competitor relation, sponsor rider relation, except for the money, which there was a rumor that was a part of it as well. I mean, it's always a part of it, obviously. But yeah, what do you think makes that?
I think it's a lot of things. With Goya, it was a good fit because obviously they gave me a good proposal. We lived on the same place. It was easy to work with gear. develop things. I get along really well with everyone on the brand. You know, like they were friends before we started working together. And more than anything, they always gave me a lot of freedom to travel where I want to travel, not to put me on too many trips of things that I didn't want to do. They never requested that of me. They're always kind of there to give me the tools and support and allow me to do what I wanted to do. And I think because of that, we always had a really good relationship. And because they gave me so much freedom, it was always very important to me to try to give back as much as I can, you know, in terms of exposure for them and testing and everything, what I can do.
So as opposed to them not making you go on trips that you didn't want to go, so before, I guess, there was some sort of direction that you were pushed in. What?
No, I mean, I always had good relationship with the brands, but sometimes, you know, you got to do a lot of promotions and things like that. They are nice, but for me, the main priority is always to be at the right place at the right time. Good time of the year where there's more chances of getting a good swells, you know, good conditions. And if you're doing a lot of promotions and a lot of trips where the dates are fixed, you end up missing out on a lot of things. And Goya always allowed me to make my own schedule. And that's something that I'm really appreciative, because I was able to score a lot of good conditions over the years. And that's what it's all about in the end.
Yeah, like Fiji this year. How was that? Last year, sorry.
Yeah, that was amazing. Best condition, one of the best conditions I ever seen in my life, by far.
And I think, what was Jason saying about the footage and the trip and all that? Because before, he kind of owned the place. He had a couple trips alone, ripping, you know, like, and then you come along, and I think some of the hits and some of the airs and some of the stuff you did there, I think nobody, including him, you know, kind of, I didn't really expect.
Jason still owns the place. Like he's such a machine. When we got there, he had everything organized. And the first view I had of him, it was like him doing yoga on the reception of the hotel, because he had such a bad knee, he couldn't even walk in the morning. Like every day we woke up and he was like limping to breakfast. I'm like, man, are you sure you're going to be okay to go sailing? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to do it anyway. It's going to be good. But I'm surprised that he even sailed, because his knee was like really swollen. And, you know, he was limping the whole time that we were there. Like he had a really terrible knee. And he still got some really good waves and ripped. And it was only one day of this swell. And Jason was amazing. Like he organized the whole thing. Hotels, filmers, everything, and he was so fun to be around. And he said he had way better swells there before. He's been there so much, and hopefully I'll be able to line up to go there again with him soon.
And you obviously scored really good jaws, which is not maybe so hard when you live about 5 minutes away, or maybe, I don't know, 15 minutes. But I mean, the last edit you put out, I think it blew everybody's minds, you know. I don't think, you just look comfortable. You don't look different than Okipa. And is that because you actually feel comfortable with your gear, with how many times you sailed the place, etc.? Or is just your mind that everybody goes there and they're like, oh, his jaws is you know, is a big wave. When, you know, when I went, it wasn't actually that big, but still it's jaws and it has all this, and you go with the ski and you rig on the ski and everything is so big, and the cliff and all that, you know, it gets you really, really anxious. You feel really overwhelmed. I did, at least, you know. So what do you think it is that you just look so comfortable out there?
I think it's a mix of everything. I feel like that too. I still feel scared, but I've been there so many times over the past 10 years that slowly you get more used to it. You remember the mistakes and things you did on sessions before that you wish you changed, and you do that over and over and over so many times. And this year was a really special year because we always get to sail there, but every time every year there is something that makes it hard. Either the crowd, the wind is too offshore, the wind is too light, this and that, or the wind is only a couple hours of the day. This year we didn't have that many days, but we had 4 days that were fully windy for most of the day. Clear skies, so steady winds, and not that crowded from surfers, because the forecast had shown a lot of wind, so as many people didn't come. And the sailors were not here. So it was uncrowded. And with that, we had like so many waves. That alone helps double the performance of your session. And you have so many waves, and then you get one day, and then you have again the next day. So you're able to look at the footage that night and correct all those little mistakes, tune up a couple of things, and then go again the next day. And then 2 weeks later, you have another swell. I think it was a combination of going there many times and a really good year, because 4 days can be very different. You can have 4 average days where you get 2-3 set waves on a day, or you can have 4 days like we have this year where you really get a lot of waves. And I think it was mainly because this year the conditions were better than they had
that
been.
and don't, like, I think nobody should get stuff wrong. That place is really hard to sail. Took me like an hour to even get a wave. Not because of the crowd or anything. Yeah, the crowd doesn't help, but it's just a difficult place to sail that requires a lot of, I think, experience out there, like you say, the right lineups and also, that you actually need to catch the wave quite deep, right? You need to kind of be not like a surfer necessarily, but the wave goes so fast that you needed to wall up to be able to actually catch it. So then you're obviously scared to get pounded, and you have gotten pounded there. So first of all, how is it? And second of all, is getting out of there kind of unscathed, does that help actually,
Yeah, I think you have to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. I think I have not been involved on a wipeout as bad as it can be over there at all. I maybe had 5 or 6 wipeouts there in my life, and I'm sure it can be a lot worse. But it's funny, sometimes you fall on a bigger wave and it's not as bad, and then sometimes you fall on a medium, smaller one and it holds you for longer. So you really have to respect the wave, because you never know what's going to happen, and you can never get to a place that you think, oh, I got this, I'll be okay no matter what if I fall, because you don't know that. It can be really bad even on a smaller wave. But what you can do is control the gear you choose, the sections you want to hit, and the places you want to be on the wave, and make sure that if you do go there, that you've been training, that you've been active, and that you're feeling fit for yourself. Because that gives you extra confidence in your mind. At least you've done that, so you are at your best shape. And but yes, it's always scary, man. Every time I'm there, I'm really scared. Don't get me wrong. Like a wipeout there, sometimes I see people having wipeouts and pulling into big barrels, and it was like, oh, it's hard to even watch.
So from Jaws, let's go to a little bit different conditions and location. Denmark. So your world title year. You don't start, this might be a theme, because your freestyle world title, you didn't start the year super great. And then your wave sailing world title, you started with a 5th, I guess. And then you go to Denmark, and in basically straight on shore, 5-3, kind of the opposite of what people probably would think that you'd do well, you win the event. What do you remember from that event? And if that time, winning that, really put your mind into like, okay, I'm gonna fucking win it this year?
No. Every time I thought like that, I lost. Not at all. I was just really relaxed on that event. We had a really nice week. We were not thinking about windsurfing at all. So we were really like enjoying the place, going for runs, mountain bike rides, and doing all of that. And then out of a sudden, forecast kind of came from nowhere, so we didn't have much time to be stressed or do anything. So it just kind of from a little vacation to rig up, go, let's start. And then I had trained a lot before the event. I was in Maui and I sailed Wai'ehu a lot that month. So my onshore was I was well tuned up with my gear and everything, because I sailed at least 15 times that month of those similar kind of stuff. And that was kind of sometimes, those things start rolling. Sometimes you get on a rhythm, and I was doing the tricks that I needed to do when I needed them, and yeah, it was hard to pinpoint why it happened there or here,
Yeah, so then you go to Maui, and Philip seems to be in the driver's seat with a win in the Canaries and a second in Denmark. But at that point, he never passed the heat in the Aloha Classic in Hawaii. So what's your expectation coming into that event, knowing that it is your backyard? There was more people in it for the title. There was Ricardo, there was Thomas Traversa, there was Alex Mussolini. But I think a lot of people were picking you. Did you feel that? And what was your expectation?
I was hoping to do well, but also there was a lot of guys that could win the event. So I was like, it's always, you don't, I don't know, maybe that's my negative side. I always think that it's going to be really hard and everything, but I just wanted to make sure that I could sail the way I can my best. And the first heat on the single, I had a really good heat. And then the second heat, I had a shitty, terrible heat. I couldn't get a wave. I don't know. Sometimes it'll keep us like that. When you're free sailing, sometimes you have really good 15 minutes, and then you have really bad 45 minutes, and then you have another really good 20, 30 minutes. It's hard to say. Sometimes you just get bad waves, and they are set waves, but the fact that they are set waves, that doesn't mean that they are good. Sometimes they are choppy, they are closing out. All you need is a chop out of place, So Kip is a tricky place, and when you fall, it takes you time to get back out. So it's all of those things that can really screw up a heat. And then I had a really bad heat on that second one, and I was devastated because I lost in the second round of that event when I had a shot at the title. I was like in tears and really upset. I came home and I was so upset that I got so angry that I think I kind of forgot. I not forgot, but not gave up. I just kind of like, whatever, this thing, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If not, not. Because that loss in the single elimination hurt me so much that when I went into the double, I was kind of like, whatever, just try what you can. And then it happened. I made all my heats until Musso lost, and that's how it kind of happened.
Throwing Airtaka after Airtaka after Airtaka, just...
That was something that my brother said, actually, on the phone after the single. He's like, if you're going to lose, at least lose, like, falling and trying to do things that you know how to do. Don't lose just, like, being scared and not trying really hard, because that happens, too. A lot of the time you try to stay safe and make a plan or try to ride a wave thinking of the points, and that never worked for me. Every time I've done better is when I...
Yeah, at least go down swinging, right? From watching and from hearing and whatever, you're totally into your gear, right? You want to have your gear at 100%. What percentage would you give the gear in wave sailing? In terms of, like, let's say there's a cake at 100%, and you need to put your mentality in there, your gear, your physical fitness, all these things. How much would you say the gear is?
It's hard to say because they are not separate, I think the gear is super important, but it's really hard to have a strong mentality if your gear is not feeling So I think all of it connects, and the gear is super important. In Zilt, if you don't have something that gets you off that short break, then you're not going to make it. In Maui, if you don't have a board that has good rails and it's forgiving and that allows you to go into the bottom turn, into a big wave, it's also going to make your life really hard. So I think the gear is very important. In Pozo, if you have a sail that doesn't handle strong winds, how are you going to control your jumps, you know? And I put a lot of thinking and effort into try to develop the best gear that I can. But once again, once the contest starts, that's hopefully done, and you know, and knowing that you did that gives you extra confidence. That knowing that you trust your gear and you know it really well, it gives you extra confidence, I think, on heats.
So you never think it can bring you back, like paying super attention to detail. Like, I don't know, in slalom, it can really affect your confidence if you go out there and you feel like, okay, I could have 2 clicks more downhole, which is like 6 mil.
No, I don't think wave sailing goes that extreme. I don't think wave sailing, the attention to detail, at least for me, maybe for some other guys it is, but I don't think I pay as much attention as a slalom guy at all. You know, I have my boards and I sails, and if I get a good feeling from them, if I feel like I'm moving around in the lineup as much as the other guys and more, and my sail feels light and responsive, and you can trust your board going into a bottom turn, you know, like I don't measure how much downhole I put on my sail.
Yeah.
I don't look at that like by the centimeter, you know, I kind of look at the sail, I pump, it's more, I think, a little bit more feeling than as compared to slalom, where it's really millimetrically, you know, precise.
Yeah, because I remember watching a video from Pozo, like one of your Fanatic years, and you said like, oh, that's when I sailed Pozo with a 22-inch stance or something like this, and you were kind of pinpointing that to be, you know, to be a big thing that, you know, that brought you back, you know, at that.
But when I was in my early 20s, I didn't pay that much attention at all to gear. I knew what I felt good, and I knew what felt bad, but I didn't really know. I mean, I still don't know exactly why, but Francisco was the person who opened my eyes to a lot of details that I didn't know before. Francisco was the guy that took me into the shaping room and started showing me, look, this is board you like because of this, and that. This things you've been sailing good on. He was the person who did that, because before that I didn't pay that much attention to those details. I didn't, you know. And then he made me understand every board I get. I have those basic measurements that I look at, and that came mostly from Francisco. Those things.
Francisco Goya, that is, of course. And looking back at PWA is just dropping all these old movies right now, all these highlights. And I have to say that I just watched the 99 one, and his boards, they look super smooth. Like everything looks just so buttery, where some other guys you could see they're fighting a little bit, or you know, so
Francisco, he really has a lot of sensitivity, and he has a really good eye for detail in windsurfing. He sees things on boards that I never would have seen if he didn't show it to me, like little details on rails, on things that he can feel them really quickly. Things that sometimes takes me 3 or 4 or 5 days of testing to say, okay, this board is more like this. You feel that in a couple runs, you know. So it's really nice when he's on the island and we can go test gear together.
Did you ever try one of these old boards? These old
I think I'm too heavy. I think I'm too heavy for them. Francisco was on the full training yoga super. I don't know how he wrote. I went to his house a couple of years ago and he pulled one of his boards and it looked like something that I would sink it with one leg. I don't know how he sailed so good on them.
Yeah. So looking back from these early days, Francisco, now to what you guys are doing and what you're doing, like how much it evolved is crazy with all the aerial moves and all the rotations and all that stuff that you guys just have on lock. It seems like every edit has a move that back then would have been, you know, the sickest of, like, you would watch the whole movie for that move. But where do you think, because I have to say it does seem like everybody's doing these things better, faster, stronger, better style, more tweaked, etc., etc. But it seems like new moves are not coming along so much because there's only so much you can invent. So where do you think it's going? What is the next big thing that is gonna, you know, really change the sport?
Bigger, higher, faster. You know, if a new trick comes, great. If a new trick comes, great. But I hope that the new tricks that come are not tricks that limit height and speed, because you can tweak whatever hand, whatever this is, but if that is limiting height and speed, then it's not super progressive to me. Like the push forwards and the doubles and everything, you can do them high and clean as far as the conditions allow. You know, like you see guys doing them each time bigger and better, and that's why I like those tricks so much. So I hope that if new tricks come around, there are things like that have no height limit on, you know, in that sense.
Just to wrap it up, you're fully Maui based now. American wife, son is growing. That's one massive baby. Do you expect him to go into slalom? Because he's like, is he out of the scale yet? I don't know. Like,
he has. I'll tell you, he has slalom legs. He has definitely those thick slalom legs, or he could do that, or he could have some really powerful turns too. Like, he's a heavy baby for his age.
Okay, so based in Maui, do you still get localized as, or are you a local? You're a local now?
No, not at all. Not even close.
So, so you still get showed out sometimes from
Full howdy, yeah.
Full howdy. Okay, yeah. So obviously you're like, as probably everybody knows by this interview, you're like fully into your windsurfing and super passionate and whatever. And maybe outside of windsurfing and surfing, we didn't mention so many things because it's not like you do all that much different, do you? Maybe just hanging out with the family and stuff. Did you ever wonder, like, when you would like to slow down? Maybe, I'm not saying retire or whatever, because you're obviously always going to be sailing, but does that cross your mind yet at 30, 31?
Not yet. I still really like preparing for events. I like the nervous energy you have on the day of the contest. I still think I have a lot of hopefully it's still a couple more good years on tour, and whenever I feel like I'm probably not in contention or not getting the results I want to have, I'll stop. But so far I still feel really in love with the whole job that we have, the travels, the scoring good conditions and doing the contest. So I still think I hopefully have a lot of time.
What are your pet peeves and why is it sail numbers?
What do you mean? What the things I don't like?
Yeah, the things that like drive you nuts but like almost subconsciously, like you straight away get like almost a physiological reaction almost.
I don't know. I don't think I have anything very specific.
Come on, you do hate sail numbers.
I'll tell you, like, I do it because it's necessary, but grocery shopping is not one of my favorite things. I have a hard time with grocery shopping, especially if I am hungry. Like, if I want to grocery shop, it better be after a big meal.
Yeah, when you're hungry, it's terrible. Like I buy so much crap. It's
Things you don't need. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Okay, how many times a day do you pee your wetsuit when it's cold?
Yeah, my wetsuit depends. Is it in Zilt doing a double elimination?
Yes.
A lot of peeing. On Maui, if I'm just going for a session, I try not to pee at all. But if I have to pee, I don't come out of the water, get out of my wetsuit to do that either. So
Nobody does that. You just lie about it.
yeah. So it's just always, I mean, it's just something I have to do.
Guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Oh no, but what is? No, I'm not saying peeing is your guilty pleasure. I'm asking what is your guilty pleasure?
It sounded like it was. my guilty pleasures, probably desserts. I really enjoy eating desserts.
Top 5 windsurfers of all time.
Not on a sequence. I'm just gonna put the top 5, but there is no ranking.
No particular order. Yeah.
Polakau, Kauli, Levi, Francisco. There's room only for one more. Huh? Ricardo.
Okay, so no Bjorn, huh? You really don't care about these titles.
No, Bjorn too, but I was more thinking wave sailing because of it's more what I watch and what I do.
Yeah,
but yeah, for sure,
it's your personal.
I'm a big Bjorn.
There's
I'm a Bjorn fan as well.
There's no bad answer there. Okay, so now most underrated windsurfer of all time. That doesn't get enough credit.
Vidar Jensen.
There you go. Seat harness Vidar. Okay, if you had to choose one spot you have to sail every day for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ukipa.
Okay, not far away from that. Worst excess baggage bill?
Man, the top 5 worst were always in Hamburg. And I think I had 3 times that they charged me over 2,000 euros, and I really had no option of canceling flights or looking for a plan B because we had the Aloha Classic here just a week after or something. So we just had to bite the bullet. But yeah, definitely have had some really hard times in Hamburg airport.
Who's the best cook on tour?
Best cook on tour. Hard to say because I always kind of hang out with Swift. He's not that great of a cook at all. I don't know. I think people cook really bad on tour, to be honest. Like Ricardo can only do this salmon plate that he always does. Swift.
And he claims he's an amazing cook as well.
Yeah.
And last but not least, who do you want to hear on the podcast?
Yeah. I want to see your podcast. I want to do one where I interview you.
Okay, we can do that. No worries, but you're gonna have to prepare, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
You would have to watch all my videos. Is that something
you
you
rapping
prefer
now?
to do?
You doing rap now?
I did for charity. I did.
Okay.
But I have some songs, but they're still.
You should edit with the podcast, like an intro or.
Yeah, maybe just use one of the beats, but yeah, contemplating whether I should release it or not.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks so much, bro, for your time.
Thank you, mate.
A lot of insight, technical insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for organizing this. Have a good one there. Hope you score some sailing this week.
Thank you. You too. You will actually.
Okay.
Bye. Take care.
Bye. Take care.
And there you go. That was it. Marcilio Browne in all his glory. How long before he wins another world title? Surely, he's due. Give us a thumbs up like if you made it all the way to the end. Let us know in the comments who else you would like to hear on the podcast. We've had some pretty interesting ones recorded recently, so they'll be coming up in future weeks. Remember, every Wednesday will be a podcast. Depending how they go down, maybe we'll go bi-weekly, but at the moment we're going weekly, and we got plenty more, like I say, where that came from. Don't forget to share it, tell your friends about it, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss another episode. We've also got lots more coming up on the channel, a bit of winging action, a bit of Idiot's Guide to Speed Sailing, and obviously Send It Sunday. Are we going back to Pozo for the training diaries? Who knows? Click on the other episodes up there if you missed them, and thanks for watching or listening.